Welcome everyone to another episode of Nuts and Bolts with Marquines.
Hello everyone.
My name is Maria, and today we chose to speak about complements, complementary colors. So I want to ask you, Mark, first, why is it important to talk about complements at all?
Well, for painters, sometimes painters struggle, Maria, with having too many colors on their palette, not knowing what to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
So there are painters who have been at this for a long time. They can lay out 12 colors. They know just what to do with each color, how it interacts with others, relationships. But what I like to advocate and teach is how to create an enormous family of color with a limited palette.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, yellow, red, and blue, primary colors. And with that, an enormous amount of color orchestration can happen, but more importantly, the colors that you can achieve with complementary admixtures is very harmonious. And they can work both very graphically, as we'll see, or they can be mixed together to create some very subtle, beautiful colors. That's why.
Mm-hmm. So for those who haven't watched this series before, we did a series on primary colors, yellow, red, and blue.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did a series on secondary and tertiary colors, so you can learn about those.
Right.
So this is in a way of a continuation and just giving artists another strategy to create those harmonious palettes and orchestrations of colors on their work.
Perfect, and that's the word, strategies. It's a very effective strategy, been used forever by the greats, to create harmonious orchestrations of color, my favorite term.
Do you use it in your painting?
All the time. And if you go back through the history, including contemporary paintings, it's one of the essential strategies that painters have used forever.
Okay, so let's learn a little bit about what complements are. We'll do a little bit of color mixing and then some art history.
Yay.
Must go to with Mark.
Always.
All right. A little tiny lesson. Here
Always.
we go.
All right. Without going into a lecture about the color wheel, because that's a full lecture unto itself, just know that the color wheel is a system devised by artists for centuries to replicate the color light spectrum. And this system has worked very well in terms of understanding color relationships, what's next to each other on the light spectrum, and how they work together in admixtures with paint. All right? Complementary colors, very simply, are colors that lie across each other or lay across each other. I'm always confused about that. That are across from one another on the color light spectrum. So if I go to yellow, for instance, a primary color, directly across from yellow is violet. That is its direct complement. If I go to blue, the other primary color, and go directly across, orange becomes its complement. If I go to red, another primary color, straight across you have green. So those are direct complements. However, it's also possible to go a complement from yellow-orange right across the wheel, and you'll find yourself at blue-violet. So people think that with complementary colors, it's only about the primary and secondary colors. Not true. Every color on this wheel has its direct complement. So that, in effect, is the nature of complementary colors. They are across the wheel from one another. Why use them in, and what happens when you use them in your designs and your paintings, etc.? Well, there's a couple of different things that can be said here, at least, and that is when you juxtapose one color right next to its complement, you get a very strong contrast, a very graphic result. And we'll look at some artists who have done that. There are many in the canon of history of artists. But it creates a really kind of wonderful juxtaposition, a very strong contrast. On the other hand, once you start intermixing what we call admixtures of these complements, they create a rich family of color that's subtler. You get into what we call muted colors and chromatic grays. And we'll also look at examples of that with some art history. So that's really what we're going to explore today. I'm going to do a very simple spectrum of going, in this case, from orange to blue or blue to orange, however you want, and you'll see the results that you can get. This becomes one of artists' favorite exercise, and in the course that we offer, the language of color, it is one of the exercises, and we get lots of comments from artists who's saying things like, my mind is blown in terms of how many colors I can get. Here I've got a couple of examples of orange and what happens when you throw blue into the orange, all these different hues that you can achieve. Here you have a different orange, it's a little more red, and you get different results. So just to let you know, many oranges and many blues in this case can be used. There's no great one. And then if I add white to these admixtures, you'll see that I get a very rich family of color by just adding white. The same thing is true down here. That's why I'm showing you this. And so by adding white to these admixtures, you're going to get a remarkable family of colors. So now let's go over to my favorite place, the palette, and do some mixing. So in this demo, I'm going to be working with cadmium orange right from the tube, and in this case, cerulean blue. If you want, of course, you can mix your oranges as we've shown you before in our other YouTubes. You can also use different blues. This is cobalt, this is ultramarine. I rarely use cerulean blue in this, which is why I chose to do it today, to find out for myself the difference. So always I'm interested in experimentation, okay? Now, as we do the mixtures, we're going to be looking for two things. We're going to be looking for a shift in temperature as it goes from warm to cool. And we're going to be looking for a shift in value from the lightness of this orange to a slightly darker value of the blue. All right, let's begin. I'm going to use all of this orange. Look, on this one you can make as few jumps as you want. You can make 6, 8, 10, 12. It doesn't matter. The main thing is to pay attention to what I mentioned before. So here, just a small amount of that blue has changed this orange from very intense to less intense. And so now we have this color. It is a more muted version of that orange. And you can see that. Already it's different. I like to add white at least a couple of times to my admixture. So all you need to do is put a little bit aside here, bring some white over. And again, for this demo, I'm just going to do it twice. You could add white 3 times if you want, or even 4. Some people really like doing that. Because when you add white, you get a whole different host of colors. So there's once, and now twice. This is how you get to see what's possible with this family of color. Okay? So here I'm really turning the corner with this mixture. And there are many colors that are in between here, just so you understand. I'm doing this with just several steps. You could go 10, 12 steps, but I'm showing you the difference.
So when we add white to that, it should reveal itself as a cooler?
Oh yes, it's going to be much cooler. And again, there are many colors in between this, just so you know. You can go as many steps as you want to and make these shifts subtler. But here we have what almost appears to be what we call an achromatic gray, which is a very neutral gray. This will become even more evident as I add more white.
I love all these little piles of color.
All right. And so, yes, with the right admixtures, you can get some very neutral, beautiful grays that are very close to what you would get with black and white, but have a little more color to them, just like that.
Do you want to continue going one more step?
Oh,
and
yes.
We'll show them?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
We have here 7 steps. As I mentioned, you could do more and have more colors in between. Clearly, here's our neutral gray, and then it becomes cooler here, and this is the blue right from the tube. 2 points I'd like to make. One is that there are other colors in between here, and number 2, now we have 21 colors that are harmonious. These would work very nicely together. Well, here we are, finished for this demo, but I'd like to make this point. Allow yourself to experiment like I've done, have fun, realize that the colors are going to take you somewhere you did not expect. It's always a surprise, it's always magical. And treat this as a meditation. This is where I think the fun is just opening your eyes to the possibilities with the simplest of means. Here, I'd like to share with you a few artists These are good examples of the use of complementary colors. In these three paintings, you've got colors for strong graphic effect. Top left, you've got orange to blue and blue-violet. The bottom left, you have red to green. And in the far right, you have also orange, yellow-orange to blue. These are paintings by Emil Nolde. And I think they're really great examples of a strong graphic contrast that you can achieve using complementary colors. Here are three more examples. The top painting is Grace Hardican, female painter from the mid-20th century. Beautiful example of the strong graphic results between green and orange and red. So you also have some near complements going on in this piece as well. Below that is Vuillard, French painter. And here he's really working strongly with yellow, yellow-orange, and violet and all the permutations within that. On the far right, you've got Mark Rothko, very simple but strong example of orange, yellow-orange next to blue, and how it really has a great impact, spatially and otherwise. In these examples, I'm showing you artists who have used complementary colors to create admixtures, and in doing so, they're creating softer colors or muted hues and chromatic grays. On the left, you have Claude Monet. The strongest color, obviously, is the setting sun there, or the rising sun as it may be, mixed with the blues and the blue-greens to create these very beautiful soft colors. And on the right, Aaron Douglas, African-American artist from the Harlem Renaissance, who was using various degrees of yellow towards violet to create these soft hues and tones. Finally, we've got two more examples of using complementary colors to create muted hues and chromatic grays. On the left, Vincent van Gogh. And he's working really here with various degrees of yellow, yellow-orange, and blue, adding quite a bit of white to create these gorgeous grays and muted hues. And in the right, we've got Paul Gauguin, his contemporary, particularly in the mixing of the face and the hat. You can see all kinds of beautiful, subtle colors and tones that he's able to create using complementary colors. There are thousands and thousands of examples. These are just several.
I am personally always excited about complements because it does open a whole world of color, and I think that's what most artists are really impressed by. All the earth tones, all the grays, even the achromatic grays, all of this is quite fascinating.
Yes.
So anything to wrap it up? Anything, your last thought or tip?
Well, last thought. One of my favorite phrases, as you know, is to explain to artists that any number of these exercises, Marija, is the proverbial tip of the iceberg. The iceberg awaits you. You just need time, patience, and a sense of wonder, really. Yeah. And speaking of wonder, if you wonder more about color and learning from us, please check out our website, markeanes.com, and there you'll find a link for the language of color. It takes you to a landing page where you can see all the chapters that so many artists are having fun with.
Yeah, and from now on, we're going to switch gears a little bit towards some other issues. So we're going to move away from color to maybe exploring some principles of design or drawing. We'll see. But for now, we're going to part from color in the series of nuts and bolts and jump into some new territories.
Ooh, how exciting. New territory.
All right, stick with us. Follow Mark on his Instagram or Facebook. It's mark.anes.studio. And see you next month.
My final words, as always, Marija?
Yes.
Work hard, have fun. Bye all.
Bye everyone.